So we are back with former T-38 and F-22 and Typhoon pilot Amo, and we're here to talk about how you become a frontline Typhoon pilot. So Amo, can you talk us through this?
Absolutely, Mike. Great to be back on your channel again. So, when we're talking about the process, the pathway for someone thinking about becoming a Typhoon pilot, uh, ideally, this path starts when someone's very young, and maybe it's a movie like Top Gun or Top Gun Maverick inspiring them, or seeing an airplane flying overhead, just something that's going to spark that initial passion, that initial interest that's going to carry them through. Because let's be honest, learning how to fly, especially a fast jet, it's a long process and it's difficult in many aspects. And so you're going to need, first of all, a passion to do this, and a motivation and a drive, because if that's not there, it's going to make quitting very easy. So something to initiate that spark. A lot of times, what will cause that is just going up in a small airplane. And I just being going around the UK, the time that I was stationed there, there's small airports with light aircraft, and just looking up information online, making connections, asking questions, seeing who's got either a formal flight school, or if you have somebody, a personal friend or a family friend that has access to an aircraft, see if you can just get on an introductory flight and see if you like it. And sometimes that weeds people out because they get airsick, or it's just not what they thought. That answers the question to them whether or not this is something they actually want to do. And other people, it sets the hook in them, and they just can't stop, and they find any and every way to get to that next flight lesson, save up enough money, study enough, and just get from one step to another. I would say the process to get into the cockpit of a Typhoon and actually to the point where you are front line ready is, you're looking at the better part of a decade, depending on how much time you're holding. We'll go into that in a little more detail in a bit. But the process is a lengthy one, and if it's something that you're willing to commit the better part of a decade of your life to, from my personal experience, I would say it's well worth it and very rewarding. And it's something I would not trade for anything in the world, for me to have gotten the opportunity to strap on a Typhoon and to then teach the next generation of Typhoon pilots. Something that I will never forget. I will cherish that forever. After that, we've gotten the initial spark. We've gotten the passion that's there. All right, this is something I want to pursue. This is something I want to do, and I'm willing to put forth the time and the effort, and a lot of times the money as well, to commit to this. So, what are the options? A lot of RAF pilots come through the University Air Squadron system. So when you're in uni, and if you have that option to link up with a UAS unit, that's a great way to get exposed to the culture of the RAF, the way they train, the way they fly. And that could also help answer the question in your mind of, is this something that I really want? Is this the track that I want my life to go along? So recommend looking into the UAS option if you're in uni. Now, unlike the U.S. military, which requires its pilots to have a university degree to commission as an officer, in the RAF, you can apply right at 17 years old. And I've actually, just to make sure that I'm delivering your the people watching this channel the best information possible, I've actually gone on to recruitment.raf.mod.uk, and I've got the stats in front of me here, so I'm not pulling these things out of where. Here's what it says right from the RAF website as of the time of this recording. So minimum education requirements are GCSEs at grade C4 or Scottish National 5 at grade C in English language, maths, application of mathematics, and at least 3 other subjects. Now, as an American, I don't know exactly what that means, but I don't know, Mike, if you want to clarify more at this moment.
No, I'm going to let you go for it.
You're just going to let me run with it? All right, very good.
Yeah.
But hopefully those listening understood what that is. And so it says, in addition, a minimum of 64 UCAS or UCAS, however it's said, points, which can be accrued from A/AS levels or equivalent, T levels, or national diplomas such as BTECs or NVQs. Again, I have no idea what I just said there, and I hope your Brit audience is very entertained at my at my Yank ignorance of what I just said. But if you understood what I said, great, because those are the minimum education requirements for you to apply as an RAF pilot. All right, so as I mentioned already, minimum age is 17. 17 and a half. All right, so that half year is very important there. And now this is something everyone should pay attention to. They've lowered the maximum age. It used to be higher, upper 20s or maybe even 30, but now it is 23 for you to apply as a direct entry pilot, which means that you need to you have to begin the program so that you are at RAF Cranwell for your officer commissioning phase by your 24th birthday. All right, so if you're over 23, sorry, but as of right now, you're above the cutoff age unless you're able to successfully get a waiver to that. But if you're under 23, then I'm telling you there's a chance. So that's the age requirements there. You need to meet nationality and residency criteria, unless you're a Yank like me who circumvented that process through the exchange program. Thank you, Ministry of Defense, for letting me get around that one. And you need to commit to a minimum of 12 years of service. So I said the process to become a Typhoon pilot is the better part of a decade, but the Ministry of Defense wants 12 years out of you if they're going to invest millions upon millions of pounds into your training and giving you all of those skills to be a Frontline Typhoon pilot. So they're going to want a little bit of a return on investment from you there. Meet the health and fitness criteria, obviously. You can't be too short or too tall or too light or too heavy because the Typhoon cockpit and the ejection seat in particular have maximum and minimum constraints. You need to be able to pass the fitness test, the details of which you can find on the RAF website. And then you also need to undertake a swimming test because, lo and behold, the UK is an island. So being able to swim in case you got to bail out over the North Sea or somewhere else, God forbid, is very important. So they take their swim test very seriously. And as a side note, I remember the swim test. I am not a very good swimmer myself, and you're in almost, well, you're not in full kit, but you're in your flight suit, you're in your boots, but you don't have your life preserver. So it's up to you to tread water for quite a while. You have to swim a certain distance, and yeah, that's probably the closest I ever came to drowning. Somehow I made it through that swim test, but yeah, make sure you're comfortable with swimming if you're going to go this route. Let's put it at that. Those are the minimum requirements for you to apply. And if you meet those requirements, get your application in, whether you apply at 17 and a half or you get through uni, go through the UAS, or get your degree, making sure you achieve those minimum educational requirements. Then you're obviously going to get interviewed. It's going to be a whole process to which they vet your application and ensure that you're meeting the requirements they're looking for. And if you're accepted, off to Cranwell you go to commission as an officer, and then you will go into what's called elementary flying training. So you've officially at this point entered the MFTS, the UK Military Flying Training System, which is a contract between the MOD, BAE, and Ascent, I believe. If I'm wrong, let us know in the comments below, but I believe it's those three that partner together to deliver this training for the RAF. And so in elementary flying training, you're flying the Grob Prefect, which I never flew that airplane, but looking at pictures of it, it looks very fun. Not entirely dissimilar to the modern T6 Texan, in that it's a turboprop. It's a two-seater. You're sitting with the instructor, and you're going to learn the basics here of flying an aircraft, navigation, communications, and they are evaluating you to see what you have the potential and aptitude for. And so after elementary flying training, there you go to the streaming process. And so there are 4 different tracks that you can stream into after elementary flying training. And so if you want Typhoon, what you're hoping for is to be streamed to fast jets. The other 3 options are multi-engine, so obviously that's going to stream you towards eventually flying A400 or the tankers, the MRTT, obviously, and C-17s as well. I'm not going to rattle off everything in the inventory, but you get the point. Basically, tankers or airlift would be the multi-engine track. And then you have rotary wing, so flying helicopters. And finally, something that is shouldn't be surprising, but is increasing in the number of applicants that are going this direction, is the remotely piloted stream or track. And this is something that the RAF, that I'm being told more recently, has been emphasizing in making sure that that is adequately streamed with applicants going that direction. Now, if you're watching this and you're thinking, well, I've always wanted to be a remote aircraft pilot, there's nothing wrong with that. There's a need for that in today's modern warfare. And if flying a drone is what you want to do, the RAF has positions out there for that, and they want and need people to go to that. But what I'm being told is, even if you don't want to go that direction, if you're not the upper half of your class and you finish with performance that kind of puts you below your peers, you may be selected to stream to UAS, and that is not in any way a knock on the pilots who wanted to go there and earned it and deserved it. But typically, those that want to go into manned platforms, if they don't have the satisfactory performance, they will stream them towards UASs. So that's just something that, if that's not acceptable to you, that you have to be in an aircraft, in a manned platform, just consider that it's possible you may get streamed to UASs in today's environment. All right, so let's say you've made it then into the fast jet track, then you are going to go to RAF Valley next. And in a similar way that the USAF does its pilot training, you're going to have a basic phase where you're going to fly the Texan, the T6, which recently replaced Tucano. And it's going to be a little bit more advanced than the things you were doing on the Prefect. And so you're going to start working in formation flying and more advanced navigation and working in more tactical type concepts into your training. And so, and again, now you're going to be evaluated for what do you have the potential for? Are you going to be streamed to Lightning? Or are you going to be streamed to Typhoon? Again, typically, since Lightning is the new hotness and it's a much more limited resource than the Typhoon, they're going to take the better performing students, or pilots under training, as we call them now, PUTs. Yeah, so the pilots under training, again, based on how well they do, and there is some personal input that it's allowed. You communicate your preferences, and if you do well enough and what you want's available, chances are good you'll get that. If you don't do well enough, well, you're going to get what the RAF needs you to be in and what you've shown the aptitude to be able to perform successfully in. But that being said, some people want Lightning and some people want Typhoon. And so if you're listening to this and you want Typhoon, make that known, make your preferences known, and do well so that you can earn that spot. So after you've completed the flying the Texan, then you are off to fly the Hawk T2, which is an upgrade over the legacy Hawk T1, what the Red Arrows are flying right now. The T2 has more advanced combat emulation systems, so it'll actually simulate that you have a radar, or it'll simulate air-to-ground employment. It's a really cool setup and a very effective primary trainer for the combat environment. And so this is a more advanced phase, and basically the final step in seeing if you have what it takes to go on to an operational conversion unit, or OCU, either in the Typhoon or the Lightning. So once you've graduated from Valley, you know what you're going to. You're streamed either to Lightning or Typhoon. And if you get Typhoon, then you will be off to RAF Coningsby next to enter the OCU, which is where I taught there, and loved that job. I loved the ability to meet and train these brand new pilots right out of Valley and teach them how to fly the Typhoon and then employ the Typhoon. Very rewarding thing. So if you can make it to 29 Squadron someday on the OCU, look for my patch on the wall there as a departed OCU instructor. I miss it every day. But to those listening, it's your turn now to fight that good fight and try to get into fast jets and hopefully the Typhoon. You've gotten to the OCU. What you need to do first is do some training in the centrifuge. So back to Cranwell you go. They have a centrifuge there, and it is a really neat centrifuge, better than anything I had in the States. Now, since then, they've upgraded the centrifuges in the States to be similar to what the RAF has. But they have this centrifuge that it's basically almost like a full motion flight simulator that is on the end of a centrifuge rod, so to say, and so you're actually flying this flight simulator while under G. So one of the things they simulate for you is you're flying through all of the low-level structure over in Wales, such as where the Mach loop is, etc. And so you're actually pulling Gs and flying through these low-level areas and then feeling the Gs for real. It's really neat. But the challenging part is you're sustaining 9 Gs, and you've really got to trust the kit, and you've got to trust your training to properly G-strain and properly breathe so that you stay conscious during this. And so the vast majority of people pass. This is not anything to worry about, but again, trust your kit, trust your training. You'll be fine. Don't skip leg day at the gym. You got to make sure you've got that strong core, strong glutes, strong hamstrings to keep that blood up in your brain so that you don't pass out. But it's you look back and it's a good time in the end. It's not very fun when you're in it, not all the time, but good time in the end. So you got through the centrifuge training, and now it's time to get going on the OCU. So when I went through the OCU, they still had 2-seat Typhoons. As far as I know, they've divested most of them. There's still a few that I know of that are still lingering around, but for the most part, the Typhoon OCU is a single-seat OCU, and it's going to be taught and employed in that manner. So don't expect that the first time you sit in the Typhoon, you're going to have an instructor with you. You are going to fly that jet solo, and you are going to be on your own. And so it is imperative that during the initial ground school phase, the Typhoon, that you excel during that, because if there's any doubt that you're going to prang up a jet, they are not going to cut you loose and let you go and fly the Typhoon on your own. So the ground school phase, where you start off in the OCU, is a very important phase. Lasts approximately about 2 months or 3 months, depending on aircraft availability and how fast they can get the class in front of you through the ground school phase, so they're up and flying, and now you can have the classrooms and simulators. So the time frames ebb and flow, but I'll try to give kind of generic time frames of what you can expect. The entire OCU is about 8 months, so the ground school phase is going to consume several of those initial months, so that you know in your brain, and then also a little bit of muscle memory from the sims, what's going on with the jet. You learn about every single system in the jet, what you can control, what you can't control, emergencies, boldface. Boldface are memory recall items that you need to be able to execute basically without hesitation. So if you have a fire, hydraulic or electric failures, anything that requires you to act immediately, where you don't have time to get out a checklist and just kind of stall and delay for a bit. You gotta do this now. All of that is very much emphasized during ground school, and you'll do this over and over and over again in the simulator, doing emergency procedures training, until you've got the confidence and the instructors have the confidence in you that you're going to safely and successfully fly this jet. So, obviously, there's a lot of simulators that you will do. The simulators have a very accurate flight model. And so if you can land the jet safely in the sim, you can land the real jet in real life. You've passed all the sims, you've passed your emergency procedures training, you're ready to go. And what they actually let you do, and this is something that I helped add to the syllabus along with some of the other exchange pilots that we advocated for, because we, in the F-22, they allowed us to go out to the jet, start it up, and kind of get the feeling of what it's like to actually walk to the jet, strap in, start it up, and get a layout of the real thing and not the sim, and also the interactions with the ground crew, the engineers, so that whole part you've already done once. And so when you don't fly, or when you fly the jet for the first time, you're not doing all of those things for the first time. So it really helps you focus on actually flying the jet when you solo it for the first time. So we got that incorporated into the syllabus, where the pilot under training, before they fly the jet, they actually get a taxi solo. So they go out, get kitted up, strapped in, and they taxi it around the airfield, never take off, and they come back in, shut it down, and then they go and debrief. And this is, we've gotten a lot of positive feedback about adding this into the syllabus, because the pilots under training are happy that they've gone through all of those motions of, even getting the kit on, believe it or not, is something that takes practice. And when you put all that kit on for the first time, the G trousers, the LSJs, and connecting the helmet, you take 3 to 4 times more than frontline pilots do, because it's just all new to you. You don't have any muscle memory built. And so just getting to do these and get reps at it is what the OCU is all about. And so we try to make changes to the syllabus that are beneficial to not only the students, but just the efficiency of the entire program. So that's one example of one change that we all worked on to help make the experience one that is a little bit less stressful for when the student actually flies the jet for the first time. So you get to that first solo, and it truly is a first solo. There's no instructor chasing you in another jet. You come up with a flight plan, a profile, what you're going to do, and you present that to your instructor, and the instructor signs off on it, and you go to the step desk and you talk to the duty auth, and you present the plan, and there you go. It is you're signed off, and you're on your own. The instructor will go with you out to the jet and make sure you strap in properly, and they'll be there for kind of the initial power up right before engine start. So just in case there's any snags with the jet that they need to get the engineers out for, there's someone with more experience to help walk you through, talk you through, and just take away a little bit of that stress. But there comes to a point where it's time to start engines, and so you kick your instructor out of there, and the instructor actually heads up to the tower and dons a headset and starts talking to you over a pre-brief frequency, so that at least the instructor is always there as kind of a lifeline in case you've got any questions or it's just something odd occurs that you weren't expecting. Then off you go. You go and fly the jet for the first time, and we're talking about, depending on when you started this whole process, this could be something 6 or 7 years after you initially hit submit on that application. The MFTS system sometimes has delays and backlogs, and after you commission as an officer, you may be in what's called holding as a holdie for some time, perhaps even years. Same thing after you graduate from either prefect or from Valley. You could be in holding for quite some time until the next spot opens up. And so this is something that is you just have to be prepared for this moment to take a long time. So you've soloed the Typhoon, and you've strapped on a fast jet and you've flown it, but you're nowhere near the end. You have not made it yet. Now you need to show the RAF that you have what it takes to be a frontline Typhoon pilot, because it's not about just flying the jet, it's employing the jet. And so now you enter the combat phase, so learning BFM, ACM, TI, and some missionized type considerations, ground attack. This takes up the majority of the OCU. And obviously there's a lot of simulators that you do that help you practice the concepts, practice the employment and the communications. But ultimately in the air is where you're put to the test. And most of the time, your adversaries are going to be other Typhoons. You also have Draken out there that have jets that have electronic jammers on them. They also have the Honey Badger, L-39 that you could fight against. So various different platforms. And then also at times, the Americans will send some jets out of Lakenheath for you to either fight with or against, depending on what everyone's training needs are. So the OCU is definitely never boring in that sense, that you'll see a variety of potential adversary platforms that you'll train against. But starting off, you'll start with BFM, basic fighter maneuvers, which is 1v1 combat. And so you're learning all about turn circle geometry, energy management, the axioms of BFM, such as you might have heard: lose sight, lose the fight, energy versus nose position. All of these are still true even in today's modern jets with all the fancy missiles and avionics and helmet-mounted cueing. Still, in the end, you need to know how to maneuver your jet into a position where you can employ weapons on the enemy. And that's what BFM is all about. So learning how to maneuver your jet to a position of advantage when you already start with the advantage or offensive BFM, when you start at a disadvantage or defensive BFM, or if you start neutral, which we usually call high aspect BFM. So basically you're passing nose to nose and then entering into a one circle or two circle fight after that, or an egg fight, depending on whatever you choose. So we'll teach you how to employ the Typhoon based on its strengths, how to avoid regimes that the Typhoon is not so strong in, and basically how to drive that fight so that you're making your adversary make mistakes that you can capitalize on. So that's what the BFM phase is all about. And once you've passed that, you'll go on to the ACM phase, or air combat maneuvering phase. And this is 2v1. So you're with your flight lead. You are the wingman now. You're the -2, and you're fighting one adversary. Now you might think, well, this doesn't seem very fair, 2v1, but the point is not the advantage in numbers. The point is more about the communication and coordination and deconfliction that you set up with your flight lead. And so it may seem like 2v1, it's going to be a cakewalk for the blue team. Not necessarily so, because yeah, you're fighting that adversary jet, but there's another piece of metal out there that if you don't execute your contracts correctly, you could have a mid-air collision at worst, or in real combat, you could accidentally shoot down your flight lead, what we call fratricide. And this happens more often than you think, especially in the training environment. I do not remember any time any OCU class that did not have a fratricide in this phase. And you think, well, how can that happen? There's only 2 other jets out there. One's the bad guy, one's my flight lead. How can this happen? Well, it happens. They're in the fog of war, in the confusion of it all, under high G forces, high stress, fast-moving ball game that it is. Mistakes happen, and the point of the ACM phase is to expose the student to these stresses in an environment that's hopefully non-lethal. Again, mid-air collisions can happen. Sadly, the Germans experienced a very tragic mid-air collision in the ACM phase several years ago where 2 Typhoon pilots lost their lives. And that is something that we emphasize very highly, that no matter what, if you don't kill the adversary, the most important thing is to not have a midair with your flight lead. And so we are more concerned about the deconfliction contracts and the coordination and communication between the flight lead and the wingman than we are about lethal employment on the adversary. That'll come with time, with training. But we want to teach you how to be safe before you become lethal, because then you're potentially lethal in the wrong way, either to friendly forces or yourself. So the ACM phase focuses on that. But still, we do emphasize proper weapons employment, proper weapons deconfliction now, so you don't accidentally shoot down your flight lead. And again, also advanced handling of the jet as well. So all the BFM concepts apply. It's just now there's 3 jets out there instead of just 1v1 BFM. So it's just a step up in complexity. And once you've demonstrated that you can pass that phase, then you will move on to from the within visual range, or WVR type things, BFM, ACM, and now you're going to move on to the beyond visual range, BVR employment phase. And the building block of that is TI, tactical intercepts. And with that, now you start working in the communications with command and control, or C2. So UK has recently bought Wedgetail. So eventually when that's fielded, you'll be talking to an air battle manager and controllers on that jet. They'll have the radar picture and you're communicating with them, seeing where are the hostiles or where are the bogeys, depending on what they've been declared, and setting up your formation to be in a position to use lethal force if the rules of engagement allow. And so TI builds all of those foundations, starting from the Combat Air Patrol, or the CAP, where you're able to use your sensors to sanitize the airspace and look for potential bandits. And then committing from the CAP into the initial intercept phase, and then transitioning into the employment phase, where you're employing both Meteor and AMRAAM in their respective WESs. And then validating whether or not you have killed the enemy. And if you have not killed them, then follow-up employment. And if you have killed them, resetting to the CAP and rinse and repeat until you get it to the point of excellence. And a lot of times we pre-brief behind the student's back. Hey, the student's going to call a kill, but you're going to call what we call a PK miss, or probability of kill miss, over the radio, which means the student's missile didn't kill them. And now you need to transition from the BVR arena into the WVR arena. And now guess what? Where are you? 2v1 ACM. And so now the student's already past that phase. So the student should be able to take all of those building blocks from before and incorporate that into this BVR to WVR transition. And so that's basically how the entire OCU goes, builds up from the very simple 1v1 to 2v1, now to TI, BVR into WVR. And once the student has successfully passed the TI phase, now they've shown that they are competent in the very basics of air-to-air employment, and we get them over into the ground attack phase, and they learn how to employ brimstone, paveway, and how to strafe with the gun, and learning all the principles of that, proper deconfliction with friendly ground forces, damage assessment, etc., how to use the pod. Very complex phase, very rewarding phase. Especially, I loved doing the strafing. That was pretty fun. So, because that's just back to the basics of how God intended fighter jets to be used with a gun.
Gun only.
Yeah. So good times with all of that. we try to have the students fly with as many different instructors as possible so that we can have a fair assessment of that student's performance. And so, because everyone has a bad day,
Of course. Yeah.
and so if the student's has a bad day, but they are flying the jet brilliantly and other days, then that's going to be a one-off. But yeah, if the student is consistently performing below average, then the question becomes, is the student safe? And
Right.
so,
So safety.
yeah, yeah. And if they're safe and they work hard and they show a teachable attitude, in most cases, that student is going to graduate and go on to the front line. Yeah, there will be notes in their training folder of like, hey, these were some of the weaknesses during training. So as they go through their mission qualification on the front line, just emphasize these points and build their strength in these areas. But our primary concern is safety. And sadly, we have had those wash out from the course. It is rare, but it happens. But when they wash out from the course, it's because of egregious safety concerns. They're whether in the simulator they consistently crash. Yes, I'm not joking. There are sometimes the students consistently crash the jet, and it's like, well, it's not going to go much better in the air if
Yeah. It's gonna
at
be worse.
1G and 0 knots they can't
Yeah.
keep the aircraft airborne. Now that's very rare, but I have seen it happen. And again, just very concerning safety violations in the air, whether they don't maintain proper deconfliction with other aircraft or the ground. Now, obviously, if they really don't maintain proper deconfliction, they die. Thank God, knock on wood, may it not happen. The OCU has been very safe, and let's keep it that way. But there have been a lot of close calls, I will say,
Oh
both
wow.
with people
In your time.
nearly in my time, yep, and before and even after. Close calls with the ground and close calls with other jets. And I'm thankful that we have not had a mishap, but we all need to work together and keep it that way, including the students. And if we take safety very seriously, and if someone consistently has what we call safety points in the debrief afterwards, and these enter their records, and they can't clean these items up, then they go into the remedial action report process, or the RAR process, and extra emphasis and extra focus is put on them. This is not to shame them. This is not to make them feel like they've got a bullseye on them. This is to help them. This is so that we can dedicate extra resources and time to help them succeed. And so we're basically doing everything we can, bend over backwards, open up more resources that the syllabus allows so that we can get the student to a point where they're safe again and they've got their confidence back and the confidence of the instructors that this student is going to succeed and progress and not get him or herself killed or anyone else on the OCU killed. And so that is the paramount first and foremost concern of ours is, are they safe? And if they demonstrate that, then we're gonna do everything we can to get that student over the front line so that as they get more repetitions, more hacks, more exposure, they're going to get better. And we've seen that. I've seen weak students graduate, and they're brilliant on the front line now. They just needed a bit more time, and
Yeah.
we just needed to get them to where they're safe, make sure they maintain their confidence that they're going to reach that level, but keep maintaining safety first and foremost, and just have a good teachable attitude, and don't as we say, don't quibble about things and make excuses. Own your mistakes and
Absolutely.
learn and keep on going. Don't give up. Don't throw in the towel. Keep on showing up. Be like, yep, I messed up. That's on me. And I know what I did wrong, and here's how I'm going to fix it.
Let's move on.
And and let's move on. If we see that attitude, we're going to work with you. We're going to do everything we can to get you through. Yeah, great questions. How it works, it doesn't happen at the end of the OCU. It actually happens midway through the OCU, believe it or not.
Oh, does it?
So that
Okay.
so they have an idea of are they going to Lossiemouth or are they staying at Coningsby?
Yeah.
The students will put in their preference of location, and then so they can just put Coningsby or Lossiemouth. And then, obviously, based on needs of the RAF and what's available, they will get their preference if they perform well enough and if it's available. And so, yeah, we do a little kind of social where we're all there with the instructors and we announce who's going where. They will know what squadron they're going to as well at that
All
point.
right.
And yeah, so they can start communicating with the the QFIs and the force leads instructors over at the squadrons, and they can start making living arrangements to move over there. So that's just, but that adds another complication to the last half of their OCU. They're just going to have to manage through.